Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me for this Michaels and Derwent class where we're going to make some gorgeous holiday ornaments. And these are fun. You can use them as ornaments on the tree. You can use them as gift tags. You can even paint them in other sizes if you wanted to make them larger for a greeting card. That would be really cute too. We have 6 different examples here. We're going to get through as many as we can tonight. The nice thing about working in multiples is that you can be working on another design while one is drying. So I would recommend you start off by having a few squares of watercolor paper ready to go, and we will paint along. Remember, if you want to just watch it through tonight, maybe chat with some friends in the chat, there will be a replay in about 24 to 48 hours on Michael's YouTube channel, so you can always do that later if you feel like we're going too fast tonight, or if you just want to catch up with friends in the chat. Now, Molly from Derwent is here. If you have any questions as we go along, type the word question in all caps in the chat and then type your question. Molly can help you out with that or relay the question to me if she thinks it's something that I should answer. So without further ado, we'll switch to the overhead camera and we will get going in with our project today. So the size of paper that we're going to use today is 2 inches by 2 3/4 inches. And I'm just using watercolor paper here. And then what I like to do is take a corner rounder and just round my corners. You don't have to do that, but if you're going to use a tag with rounded corners, it will look really nice if the corners match. This is a We Are Memory Keepers Crocodile Corner Chomper. So it's a little more heavy duty. If you find that paper corners that you have maybe from scrapbooking aren't quite strong enough. So that's something you can use. Or you can just round it to like trace a penny or something and round it by hand. That would work just fine. And I've got a stack of 6 of them here. So what I'm going to do is move these out of the way and we will do one at a time. I'm going to be sketching with pen because it's easier for you to see. And we're going to start in with the hardest one first. I think it's a good idea to do the hardest project first because then everything else is a breeze. So I'm going to go right in with a pen. I'm going to use one of the Derwent line makers because it's waterproof and I can paint over it with my Derwent Inktense products and not have to worry at all about the paint. I'm going to use a 0.5 line. Now, when I'm using watercolor paper, because it's kind of textured, I tend to go with a little bit thicker of a nib, and then I don't have to press so hard, so it conserves my pens so they don't wear out. If I was to use a really fine tip pen, it would tend to wear out on me. Now, I would generally sketch this with a pencil first and then reinforce the lines that I want to keep with a pen, but because we're online and I want to make sure you can see this well, I'm going to go right in with my pen, and I'm actually going to start with the eyeball here. I'm doing an almond shape, then a circle, then another little highlight circle there. I'm going to make a little kind of, I would say, a very obtuse V shape. I'm going to make a line down from that. And I'm going to make a very, almost like an upside down V with just maybe a little bit of a smile on the end. Now with a very light touch and kind of a feathery stroke, I'm just going to draw the contour of my bunny face. Don't worry about it being perfect. This is going to be cute and fun. I'm going to do a circle for the button on a bow. I'm going to do one loop of my bow, and I'm going to do the other one. Now keep in mind, you can watch the replay tomorrow and you can draw along. I went a little too far in there. I'm not going to worry about that. And we'll do our little ribbon tails. I'm going to bring up the back side of the face. And then we're going to put our bunny ear in there, which is just like a long oval with a little bit of a point on the end. And we're going to do another one right over here. I'm going to put in a couple little whiskers. And that's really all you need for our bunny sketch. It'll only take a second for that to dry. You really don't even have to wait at all for it. And we're going to start by adding in our background. And I'm going to use the Graphitint pan paints for this. And I recommend you make a little swatch anytime you have any sort of watercolor or water soluble pan paints, because it can be very tricky to tell what your colors are when you're just looking at the pans. I'm going to use a Derwent water brush here. I'm just going to take all my caps off so I can see the sizes really well. And since these are small tags, you do not need to tape them down. I think I'll use my large flat. You know what? I think I'm going to try to bring my camera down a little bit closer. There we go. I think that's a little bit easier to see. I'm going to take my large flat and I am going to wet the background. Sometimes I'll squeeze a little bit of water on my palette first to get it going. I don't recommend you squeeze your brush over your paper, because oftentimes you'll get a big drop and it might not be what you want. And you can actually blast your paper with a heat tool if you're worried that your ink might not be fully dry. Now I'm going to pick up some blue. I'm going to go with this ocean blue here. And I like to have a really wet background and kind of drip it in, because what will happen when you do this is you'll get a beautiful texture. This texture is called granulation, and certain pigments granulate and graphite granulates, and graphite is the product that is in these Graphitint paints and pencils that give it that beautiful, soft, well, graphite look. But the more water you put in, the more you're going to get that beautiful texture, if you like it. You know, if you don't like that texture, if you'd rather have a smoother effect, then use less water. I've got a paper towel here, and what I'm going to do is just wipe off, squeeze out a little water and wipe my brush to take out the color. And then I'm going to pick up some of this, it's called Meadow. It's a nice vibrant yellow-green color. And I'm going to let those colors blend. So it kind of looks like sky is meeting the ground and just kind of blurry in the background. Now I'm going to take the, I think I'll use this port pencil, and I'm going to do the eye. Leave the white highlight unpainted if you can. If you can't, don't worry, we've got some white paint we can touch it up with. And I'm just going to liquefy that. And then I'm going to set this one aside so the background can dry while we work on our next tag. And that way we don't fiddle and fuss with it, and it gets to dry beautifully and keep that granulation. The next one we're going to do is really easy and does not require any drawing. We're going to do the poinsettia. And we will be using 2 round brushes. So when you're doing a flower or a leaf and you want a fat petal, you need a fatter brush. When you're doing smaller petals, you want a small brush. So we're going to start off with the large Derwent round water brush. And you can use regular brushes. If you don't have water brushes, that's totally fine. A good rule of thumb is to use the largest brush that you can handle, and that will make you a better painter. I'm going to start off with the autumn brown, which is actually quite a red color. I'm just going to put my glasses on, make sure I'm reading that right. Autumn brown. Now, if you wanted to boost the color a little bit, and you had like the Inktense blocks, that would work really well, or the Inktense pan paints. So what we're going to do is pick an area in the center. Actually, what you might want to do, maybe grab a little bit of this russet color, which is kind of a yellowy brown, and put a few dabs just to indicate the flowers in the center of the poinsettia. Then you load up your large round water brush with the autumn brown, or if you prefer a brighter color, you can use a brighter color. And then you're going to make little leaves where you start on the tip of your brush, you push, and then you pull. Now I like to turn my paper as I do this. If your leaves aren't as big as you want them to do them 2 strokes. So if like you're doing this and you're like, or if a stroke is kind of jagged, you can go in and fill it in. You can go and fatten it up if you need to. I like to turn my paper, so I'm always pulling that stroke towards myself. Now, something that's kind of fun that you can do if you've got the pencils as well, is while these petals are wet, you can take one of the pencils, and I'm going to go in with a port because I really like how red that one's even a little bit redder, and I can go in and I can add a vein. You don't need a lot of detail here. If you're going to make a bunch of these up, you're going to want to keep it kind of simple. I love the vintage effect you get with the Graphitint. And when you're filling in the middle of these larger petals, I would recommend just do like a 1-stroke type smaller little petal here. And just try to balance it out as you go. Once you get the hang of this, you will be whipping out these flowers in no time. You don't want to wait too long to do these veins, because if you do, the petals dry, and it's the wet petals that make it work really well, because it kind of it gives you a nice crisp line because it dissolves the pigment from the pencil as you sketch over it. So now what I'm going to do is wipe my brush off here, and I'm going to go in with the green. Now you can probably see that I did veins on some of the larger petals and some I didn't. Some of the smaller ones I didn't. We're going to start off with the same large brush, because we want to make the larger green petals, or leaves, or all leaves actually. You know, the flowers are the little yellow things in the center. These are all.
Hey, Lindsay, it's Molly. Do you have any tips or tricks for anyone, like as they're trying to make that flower shape? Because you just make it look so easy. And I think we're just sitting here kind of watching in awe.
Oh, sure. Let me get a scrap of paper and give you a kind of slow-mo here.
So it's like you just kind of whip through that and you have it done in like 2 minutes and you make it all look so easy.
Sure. And you know, a great tip is to get like a brown paper grocery bag and a round brush and a cup of water. And you can keep practicing that. Just dip it in the water and paint on the brown bag or piece of cardboard or whatever you have. And then as the paper dries, it disappears and you can keep practicing. So you got to make sure that you've got a fully loaded wet brush. So I've got lots of that green paint on there. You're going to start on the tip of your brush and little pressure. Then you're going to press and splay those bristles out so you get the fatness of the middle of the leaf. And then you're going to lift up and go back on the tip again. So you want to practice doing that in one motion. So lift, press, lift. Lift, press, lift.
So then your flower petals are very similar too.
Same exact thing. And then if you just need to make it fatter, you can do 2 side by side, or just press more. The more you press, the chunkier that petal is going to be. And you can.
Hey, April, a couple of people are asking what brand of water brush that is, and that's Derwent also. So it's a water brush. It's a push button water brush.
Yes, and this is really nice if you struggle with any arthritis or hand issues, because it's got a soft silicone button there that's really easy to push. I've struggled, and I don't have arthritis, but I've struggled with some of the harder plastic ones that don't really have that flex in there. This is great. Well, it's great for anyone, but I would say, especially if you're working with young children or older folks with arthritis, or you just want a more comfortable water brush, it's definitely the way to go. And I got the 4-pack here. And it gives you 3 rounds and 1 flat. And I've been using these, gosh, when I first got these, I've been using these for a couple of years, and they're still, because I think I got them when they first came out, and I mean, they're still performing very well. So you just lift, press, lift. And that's all there is to it. And you can use a smaller brush to get smaller ones, or just don't press so much to get a smaller shape. So we're going to make a bunch of those going around our flower here. And you can just kind of fill in as you see fit. And keep in mind, if you prefer a more vibrant palette, you could go with the Inktense pan paints. Or if you like a softer palette, you can do the pastels. You could do the metallics on black paper. If you have some like black watercolor paper or black cardstock or black wrapping paper, that looks really elegant to do the same exact stroke here. We're doing the same exact poinsettias, but do them on black with metallic. It's a very elegant look. Place cards. Now, once I get too small here, notice how I'm not getting a point on those. I really need to be switching to a smaller brush if I'm trying to get in these tighter spaces. So I'm just going to go ahead to this. This is the medium round. You got to make sure your paint is wet enough so it can flow off of the tip. Now, because my water brushes are a bit older, they have lost their point a little bit, but I'm still able to get some really nice shapes here. You can go in with a smaller brush, and you can, if you're not happy with the end you're getting on your leaves, you can go in, like I can go in with the tiny one, and I could go and add a little bit more of a point to any of the ends that I wasn't happy with. The important thing is that you're happy with the way your tags are turning out. And this is a great way to practice your brush handling and your brush control, because you're going to need a bunch of tags. So you get to get a lot of practice in. Sometimes I find turning my brush at the end of a stroke can help me get a nice point. You can go in and add some veining if you like. I probably only do it on the larger leaves, because the smaller ones you might not, this might be a little too thick on them. And then that's all there is to the poinsettia. I added a couple tiny ones there just because the way I had balanced everything out, I didn't fill the space with leaves. So feel free to do that if you want to. Use a smallest brush if you want to add tiny leaves there. Now, the next one I think we'll do will be the Christmas tree. Everyone loves a good Christmas tree, and it's a nice and easy one. And so to finish that off, I would just mount that with some double-sided tape onto a tag and add a little bit of string. And these tags, this is just leftover Matboard, like for picture framing, and I just die cut it with a crafter's die cut that I had with a die cutting machine. But you could also just hand cut some cardboard, or take some scrapbook paper or wrapping paper, glue it to an old cereal box, just like Save Your Cereal boxes, and cut tag shapes out of them if you want something a little bit thicker and you don't have Matboard. So it's very, very, very versatile. All right, we're going to go in with the pen again, or pencil if you're not comfortable drawing. I'm again going to go with the 0.5. And we're going to sketch on a Christmas tree. I'm going to start with the little wooden base here. And I love this design because it's so sketchy and just casual and fun. Let's do some little lines for some wood grain. I'm going to do the trunk there. And I'm actually going to start by putting on the Christmas balls because I haven't drawn it in pencil first. So I got to make sure I don't make branches over where I want the balls to be. But you could draw your tree first in pencil and then draw the Christmas balls and then just outline with your pen where you want, you know, the good lines that you want to keep.
Hey, Lindsay, what kind of watercolor paper are you using?
This is just 140 pound, 100% cotton, but it's kind of fun because it's got a little glitter in it. It's by Paul Rubens, and it's just a shimmery paper. The other ones I did with the Strathmore Ready Cut, and I like that too. I just had used that all up, so I grabbed that because it was handy. But these are done with like the Strathmore Ready Cut. Any good quality watercolor paper is totally fine. We're not really soaking these, so you don't even have to use cotton if you don't want to. But I do like the Strathmore Ready Cut as far as an easy to find paper. Just want to make some little shaggy marks here for your branches. You don't have to be very specific. Just get some texture in there with the pen. And again, that was the Derwent line maker, the 0.5. Okay, I'm going to start off again with the background, and then we'll set that aside. We'll come back. We'll do the background, we'll do the Christmas balls, and then we'll come back to paint the tree. So when I'm painting the background, oh, you know what? Look at that. See, I didn't wait long enough. And can you see how that actually made my ink bleed a little bit? All you got to do is, if you have a hair dryer or a heat tool, give it just a really quick little blast, or set the tag aside for 5 minutes and come back and paint it. You got to let it heat set, especially on watercolor paper, because watercolor paper has sizing in it, which is like it's kind of like a glue that they apply to the paper to keep your watercolors from feathering, but it does make it take a little bit longer for your waterproof pen to dry as opposed to like a sketchbook paper. That should do the trick though. So I'm going to wet the background. I'm wetting, no, I don't want to touch any of the Christmas balls. But I do want to overlap the edge of the tree a little bit. I'm going to go in with the ocean blue. And I'm just going to apply that color on the edge pretty much. I love the texture of these Graphitint paints. And don't forget to go up under the tree as well. And then across the bottom, I'm going to have a little bit of, I think I'll do the russet brown. Mix it with a little bit of that autumn brown, I think. Just want to make sure that you bring it across both like fairly evenly. All right. I'm just wiping my brush on a rag just to get out any extra paint, and then I'm just going to soften those edges there. Now you have two options. You can use the paints or the pencils, but because the pencils have more color options, I really like that port color. It's a little bit more of a cleaner, it's a little cleaner red than the autumn brown red there. I'm just going to go in and fill the Christmas ball ornaments in with that color. Now I could have painted the Christmas tree and gone in and gone right over that with the red, but with the green tree going over that with red, that would make mud. And since these colors are already desaturated because they're a graphite product, that would just really, it would really take away, I think, a little too much. It would make it too muddy. So that's why I'm doing that on its own. I'm going to make sure my brushes, my little round brush is clean, and I'm just going to go in and activate that color. Now, if you didn't have the pan paints and you wanted to do the background, you could simply just color very lightly with your Inktense pencils, your Graphitint pencils, and add water over it. So the pan paints are kind of a convenience for when you want to apply a broader wash of color, but they're the same material that's in the pencils. So if you have the pencils already, you can totally use them. Another thing you can do with the pencils is you can actually take you can take your brush and you can go like that and lift off the color like you were lifting it out of a pan. So it just gives you a little bit more versatility if you don't have both. And then you can just bring that color over to your project and apply it like that. We're going to set this aside and let it dry, and we're going to work on another one of our tags. I think we'll do another simple one. Actually, our bunny might be. Our bunny still feels a little cool to the touch, so we'll go ahead and we will do our holly and holly leaves. This time we're going to go in with our pencils, and this is going to give us a no line effect. It may feel a little chaotic to be switching, but when you have wet projects, it's nice to have something else you can jump onto. And again, the replay will be available on Michael's YouTube channel tomorrow for you to check out and paint along with, and there's a pause button there, so that can be very helpful. I'm going to start off by making 3 circles. 1, 2, 3. And because we're going to dissolve these, I don't have to worry about being really, really neat. And I can go ahead and color these right in too, because I'm going to add water to them. Another one right here. And we'll do a third one right on top. Go ahead and give them a little bit of color while we're at it. You don't need too much because once we add water, it really magnifies the color. It's hard to tell how much pigment you have down until you add some water to it. And I want it darker around the edge. See how it's darker around the edge? It gives us that beautiful dimension. So when I'm adding my pigment, I'm just gonna almost go for a harsh outline because it'll actually work for us. Then I'm gonna go with, let's see, we got a couple greens. Let's see, I think we have 3 greens. We've got green gray, and I don't think I want that one. We have got meadow, which is a really bright yellowy green, and we have ivy. I'm going to start off with the ivy, and I'm going to draw a holly leaf. So you want to start with a center vein, and then you're going to make these swooping marks. Okay, and it's going to end at the end of your line. So you make your line as long as you want your leaf to be, and then it's really easy to get your leaf just the way you want it. So I want a short leaf here. I'm only going to make my line that far. And then I'm going to do my swooping, my almost like, well, I don't know, kind of reverse scallop shape. You can have them overlap one another. I think I want to I'll get this one in next. And then we'll get one going like there. And we could throw in another one if we wanted to, or we can leave it just like that. So I think I want a little bit of a lighter color on one side. I'm going to go in with my meadow, and I'm going to color in. You don't have to have the same side because the leaf is all one color. It's just how it's reflecting, how it's bent towards the light, like how it's going to look lighter or darker. So I am going to do the right sides on those two, and I'm going to do the left sides on these two. There's really no way to mess it up because they're all bent a little bit differently. And we might get in that green gray. We might use that for veining. We'll see what we need once we finish it up. Move these apart a little bit. You can see better if my hand's not over it. You want to make sure your fingers aren't wet or that you don't touch the on top of the pencil, because if your fingers are wet and you touch the area, it's going to smear it. And now we're going to add some water, and I've got this medium-sized brush here, which I think actually still has some green on it. So, yep. Remember, don't squeeze over your project. And you're just going to liquefy. It's very easy. It's almost like, oh, those old magic coloring books. If you ever had those when you were a kid, I got a cat here. And you would have the pages that would have the little dots of color, and then you'd paint over it with water. That's kind of what this is when you go in and you get to go activate the colors. Now, after you get one of these activated, one of these leaves, before you proceed to the next one, what I want you to do is to grab a dark green. I'm going to go in, oh, actually, there's even another dark green. We have this, this slate green. I'm going to try that. And I'm going to go in and draw my center vein in again. And I'm even going to draw lines from the points on my holly to the center vein. And that gives it a really pretty dimension. Now, if you want to have a little shading, but you don't want to go in, because if I color on top of this wet area with a pencil, it's going to make a really, really dark line. If I want to just add a little bit of shading, I can take my brush, I can lift that up from the tip of that pencil, or I could get it from the slate green paint pan, but I got this in my hand already, so why not? And I can just go in and add a little bit of shadow to that too. There, now I'm going to let that one dry. So we're going to proceed with that, doing that same thing for all of our leaves here. If you need to switch to a smaller or a larger brush, if you think that would be more comfortable, feel free. The great thing about doing tags is that you're able to learn more about your products in a very low risk. Let's this time I'll take it from the pan paint and see how that looks, in a very low risk atmosphere. The nice thing about having the paint pans is that I can switch between the two, because using the paintbrush on the pencil, if you're going back in to use the pencil again, it does soften it a bit, and you lose that sharp point. So if you do have both, then use both, but if not, then you definitely can just get by with the pencils. I recommend, if you want a background on any of these, that you do the backgrounds first, because otherwise you have to paint around, and I think that can be kind of tricky. And if you're not sure if you want to go in with any like shadows with the paint, you can always wait until it dries and go back and do it later. So you don't have to decide that now. I like the shading. If I look at one that doesn't have the shading and one that does, I really like the shading. I think it adds a nice dimension. I probably got a little too much on my brush there, but you can darken some other areas. to make it match a little bit more. There's no mistakes, only opportunities for embellishment. These go really quickly once you've gotten the hang of it. And now I'm going to wipe my brush on a paper towel, get any of that extra paint out of there. And I'm going to go ahead and paint in the berries. And you're just liquefying. Pay attention to the contours though. I try to go in the direction, like I try to paint this in circles so that it kind of pushes the pigment to the outside a little bit and it gives us that natural shadow. And if you really like the look of pen and ink, and this looks too wishy-washy for you, you can wait for it to fully dry. You never want to go in with your fine liners on the wet paper because it will ruin the nibs, but you let it dry completely. You can go in and you can add outlines to it. So it's just fun to try different styles to see what suits you best. Now I'm going back in with that port pencil and I'm just adding some definition to the outside. And I'm going to lift out a little bit of a highlight if I can. I think I need to scrub a little bit with a little bit of water, lift out a little highlight. Just scrub in there with your brush and then press. Do it again. And you can also go in and embellish your regular color pencils too after it's dry. And more paint, but I don't want to have really harsh lines, so I'm gonna go in there with the brush to tip method here. Just kind of paint around those highlights we just lifted. And I got a little bit of a sloppy edge, so I'm going to sharpen that up a little bit. And last but not least, we'll have a little stem on the ends there. I'm just going to grab my Midnight Black and just do a tiny little dot. That's all there is to that, and I would mount that onto a red tag and add a little bit of twine in there. Or if you're just doing the watercolor paper, you could punch a hole right there and add some twine. I love baker's twine for that. I think it's such a classic look, and you can use that for so many different crafts, so it's a really versatile product to have on hand. All right, let's go back to our bunny. Now, if I'm not sure if something's dry or not, I touch it, like I kind of put the back of my hand against it. And if it feels room temperature, it's dry. If it feels cool to the touch, then you want to give it a little more time because your paints will feather if it's still damp. Okay, so we want to make sure our brushes are nice and clean. I think the medium or large brush would work good for this one. I'm going to go right in with some fur color. I'm going to start by wetting the bunny. And wetting it helps the colors blend, and it helps the, if you want to see that pretty granulation from the Graphitint pencils, it will help show that up. You don't want to wet the bow though. We're just going to do the face and the ears right now. And I'm going to start with a little bit of the russet, which is kind of like a yellowy brown. And I really want to water that down. So I've got my, I'm just going to push this over so you can see that palette. Let's get our bunny back. Actually, we'll trade spaces there. My hand won't cover that if it's over there. And I'm going to take some of this russet color, really watered down. And I'm going to add that, maybe a little more than that. I'm going to add it in various places. Now, even though the bunny is a white rabbit, there's going to be other colors there. So that's what we want to show here. I want some of that pinky color. So I'm going to use my port pencil. Now, there's a couple ways you could do it. You could do the tip to brush method, or you can scribble some pencil onto your palette like that. That's really handy if you're like if you're still drawing with a pencil and you don't really want to get it wet yet. You can also sand a piece of plastic and get yourself a nice rough surface like that to scribble onto. I've done that before. I have palettes where I just took a piece of sandpaper and I roughed it up with roughed the plastic up with the sandpaper, and then I could just color on it with my pencil, and it worked great. I'm going to put a little pink in the bunny's cheek. I'm going to put a little bit up at the nose. I just wiped my brush off on a rag, and I'm just going to soften that. I want to get a little bit of kind of like a bluish gray. Let's see. Let's start with a little bit of gray. And this is called Graphite Gray. And just a little touch of the ocean blue to cool it down a bit. And not a lot. I'm just going to dab that into under the chin where it's a little bit shadowy, and also on the ear that's further away, that's kind of in back, and a little bit here behind the eye. I'm going to add clear water below the bow. And I'm going to put that same gray mix in there. The Graphitint products don't shift as much as traditional watercolors from wet to dry, so you don't have to worry about that quite as much. What you see is what you get. I'm adding a little bit of that pink in there too, just to make it match. And I feel like I want that a little bit redder in there. I like that autumn brown. I'm going to take a little of that autumn brown and just add a little bit of that into the center of my ears. And I think I want a little bit of that in the eyes as well. And also on the nose. Oh, that might be a little too much though. I'm gonna wipe my brush off. Wipe my brush off dry and go in there and wipe some of that out. I think I need to let that dry first before I do any more there. And I think at this point I need to let the bunny dry, and well, maybe a little bit more of the gray on the back ear area. I'm doing gray and do a little bit of the ocean blue that we used in the background. I just feel like it needs a little bit more shadow. Maybe a little bit more shadow right there. We also want to make sure we have enough contrast so we can use a white gel pen or some gouache to get those kind of fuzzy white bunny fur fluffs. All right, so we're going to set that one aside, and we're going to go back to our Christmas tree. And we're going to use Meadow. And we're just going to, I think I'll actually go to a smaller brush because the tip on that's a little too big to get the little fine details that I want. So I'm going to go with the small. Don't be afraid to use your palette. That's what it's there for. I use all the spaces. I use the spaces that you store the brush. I use the actual mixing areas. So my recommendation is go around the balls like that, so you're not like fussing with it, and then you can just drag off the greenery shapes. We're gonna paint this in with the meadow, and then we can go in with like the slate green, or you can go in one of the pencils and add some detail if you want to, or texture. I know we're going kind of fast, but I just wanted to show you these demos so that you'll be able to watch the replay and paint up a few different variations. Another fun thing you could do, if you have metallic gel pens, or like those ones that just have the glitter in it, like the Stardust pens or the Wink of Stella, you can go and add little, little bits of shimmer on these, and that would be so pretty. I love to have the metallic stuff on Christmas projects, especially tags and ornaments, because the Christmas tree lights will catch them and it will look really pretty and shimmery. I posted a completed picture of this project on my YouTube community tab, and I think it's on my blog too. So if you need to look at any of the still photos, you can check them out there. It's also my Instagram account, so if you want to save those photos to your computer, so you can look at them when you're painting. That's really helpful, just having that to go by. Now I'm going to take some of the slate green, which is a really cool grade green. It's got kind of that, it's got that kind of evergreen color. Now look at how I hold my brush. It's straight up and down, which kind of is probably annoying for you because it's probably in the way of what you're trying to see. But when you hold the brush, like, watch how I load it. I'm going to put some water in this pan. I'm going to stir it around. I'm going to twirl my brush. And by twirling the brush, it's going to stick those bristles together really well. And then I use my brush straight up and down. Actually, I'll just hold this in my hand. Hopefully the camera can focus on that. And can you see how my brush is coming in? It's like straight up and down, and that gives me so much more control. It allows me to paint on the tip of that brush, and it lets me get that nice detail. Now, I don't recommend you hold your picture like this. I'm just doing it so you can see how my how the bristles are hitting the paper, but that lets you get in there with that detail. You can use even a quite large brush and still get in there with the detail using that technique. Now we're going to do just the trunk and the box that the tree is on. I'm going to use this russet color here. And then I'm going to add a little water to that to make it a little bit lighter. And I'll do the box a little bit lighter. I think I'll add a little texture with one of the pencils while it's still wet. Add a little bit of shading and that kind of weathered wood look. And then under the box on the dry paper, I can use the pencil and just kind of give it a little bit of a shadow. And that will make the box stand out, because the box is that russet color. It's the same color we painted back here. So this just gives it a little bit more difference. This says this is sage, but it doesn't look very greeny. I think that's a sage there. And that's all we need to do for that until the highlights. And of course, you can make your box lighter or darker. It's totally up to you. And you could liquefy that shadow if you want to, but I like the texture, so I'm going to leave that the way it is. And we'll just let that dry before we do our highlights. And let's see, we are getting pretty close to the end. We should probably go ahead and finish up the bunny here. I'm going to go in with a port and I am going to color in our bow. Well, not bad. We did 4. We did 4 of these projects. I'm pretty impressed with that. When you do any pen, even if it's a white gel pen or a black pen, it doesn't matter. Anytime you're going to use pen, you're going to make sure that the area that you're going to use pen on is dry. You can either use a heat tool or hair dryer to speed it up, or just be patient. You do not want to use your pens on damp paper because it will ruin them. I have not been able to bring back a fine liner or a gel pen that I've used on damp paper. So I just want you to get the most out of your art supply investment. You could use gouache on the damp paper, but it might feather on you. You won't get a very crisp line, but you could, you're not going to hurt your paintbrush by doing that. Now, while that's still wet and I want a darker area, I'm going to go back in with a pencil, and my shadow areas are going to be on the inside of my bow loops here. They're going to be right underneath the button of the bow. Maybe a little bit on the ends of the tails. A little bit on the outside of the button. The button's going to be the lightest part because that's what sticks out the most. You can have a little bit on the inside like that. Very little water. Just want to add enough water to that shadow red to liquefy it, but not to wash it away. And you can always, like I said before, add more color by adding it from the tip of the brush if you're worried you're getting too many lines. All right, now I'm going to take my pens. I'm going to go in with my black pen, and I left the highlight on the eye by itself, so I'm just going to go and do the pupil around that. And I think I'll do a little bit of fur in the inside of the ears with the black pen. Now I'm going to use the white pen. Hopefully this is a working one. I have a finicky. You know what? I think maybe that's not fully dry. I'm going to hit that with a heat tool just to be safe. I love that texture that's back there in the Graphitint. Granulating watercolors have been so popular over the last couple of years. The Graphitint pan paints are a great way to get that look without spending hundreds of dollars. And I'm just going to draw in some fur with this white gel pen. I might try another gel pen because this one is not. Giving me a hard time. And this one is not much better, I have to say. I might have to go right to the gouache. But you'll be able to see where I applied highlights. Now this is a great just white gouache. It's any brand is fine, but I like this Dr. P.H. Martin's because it comes in this little tin. It's super opaque. You can thin it down and it still stays quite opaque. I'm going to use some of this with my fine tip brush. I'm going to put it in the lid so I have a little palette. I think I'll use this for my highlights because I'm having a hard time. My gel pens do not want to cooperate. I won't have quite as fine a line with this, but I can get to the majority of my highlights in there anyway. I have the best luck with a broad gel pen. And that pretty much does it for the bunny. You can go in and add more shading. I would definitely do the whiskers with a pen just because it's easier to get the fine lines, but boy, my gel pens are giving me grief tonight. Goodness gracious, I don't know why they're not working. I just used them the other day. Let's go to, we can add a little highlight onto the holly and the Christmas balls if you want. I would just do a very simple little dot, and I would just do them on the same side of all the balls. And that's really all you need for that. If you want to add a highlight, a more highlight onto this, you can just do a very easy little kind of little crescent. And then I'd probably do also a little, two little dots opposite it just to make it extra shiny, but that's up to you. I didn't do that on the original. It just depends on what you like the look of. So that's pretty much that. I'll bring the tags back, the finished tags back in front of the camera. I had to check the time on my computer because sometimes I set my wall clock like 10 minutes ahead, so I'm not late for things, but I didn't do that this time. So. I didn't want to shortchange anybody, but I didn't want to keep you here all night either. Those are all the examples. We got 4 done. I think that's pretty good. And I hope to see the tags that you make. So if you do make these and you want to share them with all of us, because we would love to see them, you can post on Instagram or Facebook, wherever you like to share your artwork. You use the hashtag #MakeItWithMichaels, and you can tag Derwent by using @DerwentArt_US, and you can tag me by tagging @LindsayWyrick on Instagram, and we would love to see your artwork. I know I certainly would. So with that, I guess we're going to wrap it up here. Again, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I'm Lindsay Wyrick. You can find me on YouTube and keep the crafty party going. You can find Derwent at DerwentArt_US on Instagram, or just Google Derwent because you'll be able to find their fine products at Michael's, and you can find lots of projects online as well. On behalf of Michael's, Derwent, and myself, I want to thank you so much for joining us tonight, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening. Bye.